Rarely has mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. If we find ritual extirpation, undesirable natives of another world, the rest must be destroyed. Is it possible that our dark past
and pray?
Good reading, ladies, gentlemen, government agents, people who pay for porn, and anybody who might be listening. This is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind, back at it with episode 31 on mind control and brainwashing, part 1. I am Inspector Commander Tasker here, and we have over in a remote location in the woods, Nick.
I go by Constable Nick now. If you're Inspector Tasker, I get to be Constable Nick.
That's totally fair. I mean, Constable's a pretty cool name. What do constables do exactly, though?
It's just another rank in different countries on the police force and stuff like that. I look at them as fake police officers, but you can view it as any way you want.
So on like a scale of like LAPD to mall cop, where would they stand?
You know what? I think that they'd be a little bit below mall cop at least, because at least mall cops get segways. Constables just have little billy bats and stuff, and they have a whistle. Like what is this, third grade playground? Where you just gonna run around with a bat and a whistle?
Well, I mean, I don't think. He has a little bat thing. Like, I don't think mall cops are allowed. I mean, I don't know. Do mall cops beat on people? I've never seen or heard of that. I thought they just kind of passive aggressively tell 15-year-olds to get out of fucking bookstores.
Yeah, but I mean, they're both kind of okay. You know what? They're on the same level in different ways. Let's say that.
Oh, cut from the same cloth, eh?
That's right. Oh, also, the whole people paying for porn thing. That's the degeneracy. Why would you spend money?
I feel paying for porn is one of the most like 1% like elite rich person thing to do. Like there's literally no reason for it. It's just excessive. There's no point to it at all outside of just saying that you do. And I mean, yeah, you get to see like all the HD and all the really good videos. And I'm sure they have better, like more optimized search options, which is helpful, but is not half the joy of watching porn is going out of your way to find the perfect video and going out to sift through all the garbage to find what you like. And, you know, that's a journey. That's a bonding experience you can share with your buddies.
After about 500 pages and you find that right one, and then you all can just hang out in the same room together and watch it. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a big part of our culture, and to get rid of that by just paying money for optimized search, like the shit's free already. Like, what the fuck are you doing? This isn't like the 70s where you have to buy Playboys anymore.
Yeah, Epstein probably paid for his.
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. Well, no, he didn't pay for porn. He paid for children.
Same thing. They're both against my Christian God. So.
Oh boy. Well, now that all the energy has been completely obliterated,
Okay.
How do you feel about your horoscope today?
Okay, my horoscope. You know what? I went first last time, Tasker. Why don't you go first this time?
Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, let's see. Someone may be calling you on certain behaviors today, Scorpio. It could be that your aggressive nature rubs somebody the wrong way and they simply don't have thick enough skin to take it. You may not be aware of how your warlike attitude affects those around you. This is a good day to see things from someone else's perspective in order to gain a bit more data on the situation. So, Nick, if I start going off and calling you a little piss boy and that I hate your fucking Nick's wearing like a bit of a kind of like a Freddy Krueger early 90s elementary school long sleeve shirt today.
Yeah, it's hip.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 80s came back. Now the 90s are coming back in style.
But you're also like over 6 feet tall, so it really doesn't matter what you wear.
Yeah, because if they say I look bad in it, I'll just wear them.
Yeah, exactly. That's the laws of the land.
Look, Tasker, I didn't want to say anything lately, but you've been a real dick. All right, so I'm calling you out on your. I'm calling you out.
Oh no!
Scorpio.
You feel you feel attacked and unsafe in this remote environment that we're recording in.
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, so I just wanted to call you out, man, and I figured now's the time to do it.
Well, I mean, it is in the stars, so I have no choice but to accept your calling out, and I will do my best to see things from your perspective, which is will probably get us off the air. So yeah, get ready for that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you don't want to take my perspective on anything.
Yeah, that's troublesome.
Okay, well, I'll get into mine. So let's see. It says it's okay to be wrong, Cancer. If you every
Never gets old. Never gets old.
if you know you've made a mistake, feel free to admit it. Don't let your ego stand in the way of progress. Others won't wait to deal with you if you insist that what you're doing is right all the time, when perhaps it isn't. Your mind may be a bit more fragile on a day like this, so try to be more sensitive and receptive than usual.
So give up on your dreams. Listen, follow the status quo.
It's basically telling me to conform. It's getting a little bit philosophical. It's bringing the ego into this. And the ego, man, I don't know if you want to take the psychotherapy route or if you want to take a stoic route. We can talk about the ego all day. Man, what is this horoscope trying to tell me, man?
I was going to say it's actually very relevant to what we're discussing today, but the whole conformity, listening to your superiors, doing what you're told, and how serving the whole is better than serving thyself. It's a very sounds kind of brainwashy. Ooh. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about today with mind control and brainwashing.
All right, everybody. I want to say hello and thank you for listening, guys. We just hit our 30th episode last time. Today's 31. So you guys have stuck around. You guys have been along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of episodes. Yeah. If you think about it, our episodes they average like about an hour. So if you've listened to all of our episodes, you've listened to over 30 hours of our content. Well, realistically, it's probably more like 26, 8, but that's
something. Yeah, but it's still a lot. That's a whole day and a maybe a quarter of you guys listening to us ramble on. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Now with today's episode, we will be putting you in a trance with our own special form of mind control today. This is going to be a 2-part series from your booze, right? Your babies at Close Encounters. That's, of course, talking about Tasker and I. Mm-hmm. And in this series, we will be covering all things that have to do with mind control, psychological manipulation, brainwashing, and, of course, Big Daddy MK Ultra. Now, although we will make this as fun as possible, some of this subject matter will be dark, and where we here at Close Encounters do not condone the use of these psychological tricks, especially for nefarious reasons. I'm just kidding. Fucking do it. Take it.
Yeah, don't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't be gaslighting your loved ones. It's a bad idea.
Lean into it.
Maybe it's not a bad idea depending on how evil you are. It's just mean.
Yeah. Well, just do it and report back.
Yeah. By the way, I enjoyed that. What's that called? Subliminal message. Yeah. Yeah. Also, it could be ASMR.
A little bit of both. There was ASMR that's meant to get people to start doing brainwashing. So I hope it worked.
Exactly. I mean, and one could even argue too that us asking you to share this with your friends might actually be considered a form of brainwashing to some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was funny. We were talking about, like our little powwows of like, okay, how can we increase viewership and all this stuff? And when you think about it, it's a lot like a cult meeting. It's a lot like, how do we get more people to decide that they need us?
Yeah, without selling our bodies.
Yep, not yet. At least we'll save that for live shows.
It's for live shows or when it gets rocky. We're gonna do that.
Exactly. But to get a little technical on you guys, brainwashing is also known as mind control, re-education, menticide, or coercive persuasion. And it is defined as the process of pressuring somebody into adopting radically different beliefs by using systematic and often forcible means. So this is not necessarily psychic or supernatural mind manipulation. I know the term brainwash, mind control does kind of have that connotation, but that's not exactly what we're getting into today. Next week, we'll go into a little bit more detail on the more supernatural of mind control rays and theoreticals and voodoo, whatever you want to call it, because in essence, mind control is not creating a mind slave or something like that. It is, using techniques to we'll get more into it. But today we're going over instead the very real historical and ethically questionable techniques of bending others to suit your needs or goals.
Exactly. And without further delay, let's crack open the puny human mind like a cannibal at an all-you-can-eat buffet and dive right in.
How long did you take to come
Thought
up
about, I thought about that one for a while, and I was very happy with how it came out.
with? Okay. Proud of you.
Thank you. Now, first up on our list of psychological tricks is something known as isolation. Isolation can be physical, psychological, and or emotional. It is also a method widely used by cults around the world because unfortunately, it's quite effective if facilitated by the right person to the right person. And it has to be somebody charismatic. And I want you to think Charles Manson or perhaps even yours truly.
And this isn't like self-imposed isolation, like, like me and every other art graduate desperately searching for work right now.
No, this is and we'll come to see, but this is isolation that you're tricked into. There's isolation you're forced into, but there's isolation you're tricked into, and using these psychological methods. Now let's begin by talking about physical isolation, which includes 4 main techniques performed by cult leaders and their followers. And for the purpose of making it easy to convey, we will be deconstructing cults on how they use isolation. The first technique is simply recruitment, but recruitment is actually what they would call it from the cult's perspective. From our point of view, it's honestly more like entrapment.
And also, I just want to point out a big thing with cults is these terms that they use, like these double edge, like you said, recruitment, which is really just like, putting the bait down and stuff and making it seem enticing. And one of the big things I want to reiterate, or not even reiterate, just iterate and then reiterate this entire episode is, yeah, that's right. We're getting all kinds of mind bendy today, but burn this into your memory. If you could take anything out, this episode isn't to teach you how to become an evil mastermind. This episode is to remind you, we and you and everyone you know is not immune to propaganda. Nobody is. You can think you're the smartest guy in the world. Even the smartest of us fall into cults and shit. Like, it's just, you got to be careful. You got to question everything. You are not immune to propaganda.
Yes, and also the other goal of this episode is for you guys to utilize this information for your own good and creating your own thought processes and your axioms of ideology that you believe in. So take it and run with it. There's 2 sides to every coin. Asker is here to tell you guys to not use this information and to use it to be wary. I'm telling you to use it and flip it and reverse it, and then you can make money and you can get all the women and you can do all the shit that you want to do, except for the last one. Don't do what we talk about at that point. I will give a disclaimer.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say never use this stuff, because unfortunately we do live in a world where you do kind of have to take the reins on your own. Well, it's like that whole thing of like, we all know that lying is bad and that it's not good. You should tell the truth. But we do tend to find ourselves in circumstances where lying becomes a tool that we need to use. And it's just, there's a whole spectrum of like what's unforgivable and what's utility and there's this whole thing. And so half of this thing is, because you gotta, okay, my best example is, when I was younger, I was really short. I was super skinny. I got a little bit more meat on me now, thank God. And, kind of a goofy looking guy. And, I found very quickly that in order to get what I wanted, I couldn't use physical intimidation or, what is it? Or just, or fall back on like looks or be able to persuade people with that. I found that making people laugh was the strongest tool I had, which one could argue is a form of brainwashing, of distract them enough by getting them laughing to make them forget that I'm just completely like, I don't know. I really was just looking for friends, I guess. So see, brainwashing doesn't necessarily have to be that bad. Like, you got to use it in a way that doesn't ruin people's lives.
Yes. Yeah. So take that how you will with this episode. Again, Not condoning anything, but also report back when you make a cult. Let me know how it's going.
Yeah, and you know what? Give us a high position. We
Yeah.
can do a lot of good for you. We got a platform here for you to use. So if you're making pretty good dough and you need some broadcasters, yeah, you know, we have over 30 hours of experience.
Yeah, and we're charismatic, so let us in.
Yes, please. All right, now back to it.
Now, when talking about recruitment, or as we will call it, entrapment, what these cults will do is get their most charismatic members to quote unquote work the streets, if you will. And I don't mean work the streets like the red light district and stuff. I'm talking about working the streets like they will, they'll hustle in the streets. Perhaps they are preying upon people they suspect will fall more easily for what they are trying to do. And as an example, this can be seen a lot in Scientology. And fair warning, we will be trashing on Scientology a lot this episode because, especially in this isolation area, this is straight out of the Scientology book. This is exactly how it's done.
Dude, fuck Scientology. And that's a very good point, though, you brought up, is that especially with coronavirus and the fact that we've all had to like kind of, self-isolation and all that shit, now is actually the best time to talk about the effects of what it does to your psyche. I mean, you probably listening right now know exactly what we're talking about, how shit's changed since you haven't seen your friends in 4 months.
Yeah. So welcome to it. And if any of you out there live by a Scientology headquarters, which Tasker and I have, we live by multiple. You will notice that there will be some nice looking girl or guy outside of their building with a table, pamphlets, and worst of all, a big old welcoming smile on their faces. And they use their charm, charisma, and persuasive personalities to single out certain people and pressure them to take the next steps in their quote unquote recruitment process.
It's kind of like the U.S. Army. The recruiting officers are very nice and welcoming and promise you that they'll pay for college and that you got to travel. And then you go to boot camp and then you realize, wow, they're not as nice as the recruitment people. And too late. Because if you leave,
come back bisexual too.
I don't think that is a guarantee. I'm gonna put a pin in that right now. Let's move on.
And the next technique used in physical isolation would be what is known as the quote unquote weekend session. And this doesn't have to be a specifically weekend long trip with the cult, but it is often the case. Weekend session is also a representation of becoming isolated with this group as an individual for a specific amount of time, usually somewhere outside of the victim's comfort zone.
Some of the more churchy versions, I think, call them retreats.
Treats, exactly.
Retreats. Yeah, some might consider it a treat.
Well, I mean, hey, if they're already in the cult and then you get a treat, and hey, that's your Scooby snack, dude. You're in. You got it.
It is unfortunate how I think both me and you and a lot of people out there are a lot more food motivated than we care to admit.
Oh, absolutely. It's sad. It's very sad. I would do almost anything for like a rack of ribs right now. Like almost anything.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Well, most recently, I know because it's all I've been talking about these past 2 days is in my town there's a hot chicken place that just opened up that's fucking delicious. Like I went there twice and it's like not cheap either. And you know me, I'm such a stickler with my money. Like I almost never spend it. Like I'm the guy where it's like, oh, I'm going out to eat and I spend $5 at fucking Wendy's and I feel bad about it.
Out there don't know how tightly he grips his shekels, but Tasker is so, let's say, good with his money. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a secret bar mitzvah at 13 that I didn't know about.
That's offensive, but though funny enough, I do remember, and unrelated to that facet of my personality, everyone thought I was Jewish back in high school, like to the point where we were in like a group and somebody made like a Holocaust joke, and the minute they said it, they looked at me and they were like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "What?" And they're like, "I didn't mean to do that in front of you." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, well, you're Jewish, right? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? No, there was a kid I knew who he's like, are you Jewish? I'm like, no. He's like, you look Jewish. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you look Jewish. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm gonna tell everyone you're Jewish. I'm like, why? He's like, 'cause it'll be funny. I'm like, okay. And yeah, it went full circle. It was crazy.
Well, hey man, I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms, give you a shalom when you come in, you know. So.
Maybe. And maybe I could use that sense of community, but not right now, though, because we can't, all churches are closed.
Point. But normally, cults will entice the victim by saying it will be a great trip to learn more about the religion, product, self help, whatever it may be that there is being pushed on this person, and a great way to meet like minded individuals. And on these weekend trips, the cult will usually begin preaching whatever it is that they are there to convince them of, and that's where they start getting them hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. Get you bit by bit by bit until it's too late.
Exactly. Freakiest part about the weekend trip is that if someone says that they can only stay a day, for instance, the cult will say that it's fine initially. But when the day comes for the victim to leave, they will do their damnedest to persuade them to stay the full weekend with promises of unique knowledge and social pressure.
Or they'll just straight up restrain you, depending on, what kind of cult we're talking about. Because some cults, when we think of cult, we think of, robed figures with a big pentagram and like candles and shit. Like, oh, that's actually probably more black magic practitioners, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I think that there's just cults powerful enough to pull off physically restraining somebody and not getting in trouble for it. For instance, Scientology, if they did something like this and somebody was like, hey, I'm going to leave early, they're like, oh, yeah?
Are
Yeah,
you?
you can leave early, huh? Get the doors.
Mm-hmm.
But
But
nobody will ever get in trouble for it.
no, not at all. Because they're especially in America, like religious orders are and sections. And it's weird too, because that brings up the definition of what's the difference between a religion and a cult. And it was always very funny to me that nobody ever could give me a straight answer on that, because the straight answer is the only difference between cult and religion is how many members you have.
Exactly. And it was a quote, and I honestly forgot where I heard it, but it was something along the lines of what's the difference between a cult and a religion? A religion is just a cult that made it through the test of time.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and that's the thing though, is there's different varying factors of it too. Cause that's the thing. It's like a cult, like most people at the time, the word cult is used when there's a negative connotation, and that these people are just basically draining you for what you're worth. Um, and some things that could maybe fall into like that gray area. Sometimes they actually are groups that just want to, like create a social circle and stuff. But that's how they get you though, is they started off that way. And then suddenly they're asking for a little bit more, a little bit more. It's like having that one like really like shitty friend who like always like is like, but you've had friends like that before, that there's like parasites, that kind of just drain you for what you're worth. You do like a lot for them and they do almost nothing for you. Like,
It's completely like non-symbiotic. It's parasitic. Yeah.
exactly. And a cult, and that's how you know you're in a cult, is that the symbiosis isn't there. When you realize, wait, actually, all they're doing is just stealing my shit. But the thing is, they want to trick you into thinking what they're giving you, what you're paying for, is that, like you were saying before, like that unique connections and like meeting like-minded individuals and stuff like that. Because more than anything, and this is the thing, my mom, who's a child psychologist, says two of the biggest things that we need as humans is to be able to speak and to be heard. And like they give you that, which are very basic, essential human needs at the cost of your entire paycheck and all of your friends and social life and your family.
Exactly. That's very true.
Yeah. Anyways, this isn't a cold episode, but I do think it's very good to get into that kind of stuff. We're not immune to propaganda. If it's too good to be true, it's too good.
Yeah. Or join and let me know how it goes.
Yeah. Or start your own. I don't know. I hear there's good money in it. Yeah, and it's not taxable too.
Yeah, so make the money.
Anyways, sorry, tangent. You go on.
The third technique used by cults for physical isolation is called a social event, which is just that. It is usually just an evening or a luncheon or nothing long term. But despite the short time period, the cult still uses this time to start preaching what they want. And now, honestly, the creepiest part of this whole thing is that sometimes the victim might actually be the only non-member at the social event, and everyone else there are just people acting who are already members, pretending to be non-members, and also pretending to absorb the information given and being persuaded to join. So literally the only person that isn't a member there is that victim. Everybody else is acting. It's creepy.
That's terrifying, actually, where it's like you think you got this community, but no, they got your number. You're already in the Venus flytrap.
Yeah, like you're going to this big ball, like this dinner, right? And a couple officials in the cult to be like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of people there who are interested in joining our whatever, and you should come and hang out. You show up, you got your best tux on, you got a blue one on, just like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, right? You show up looking ready to go, and then you walk in, you're schmoozing, you're like, man, these people are really making some good points. Oh, this person likes it too. I guess it makes me kind of like it too because it's social pressure. But little do they know, literally everybody in the vicinity, all 50 people there besides him is already a cult member and just acting.
And I think the first problem is when you get invited to a luncheon. Anything that uses the word luncheon, I think, is sinister in some regard.
Yeah, because it's not even spelt the way that it should be spelt.
Yeah. And what the
Looks
fuck?
weird.
Yeah, what the fuck is a luncheon, anyways? Like, is that
Luncheon is usually like a business event where food is catered, or there's food available for so like a company luncheon, they'll call it. It's corporate shit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It sounds like elitist, corporate ass, like rich hullabaloo.
Hey, man, I'm a business major. What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the knowledge. That is helpful. I'm not just salty because I don't get invited to luncheons.
I'll invite you to a luncheon. Yeah, me and my organization, the Church of the Rising Kicking Sun, is going to be meeting up in the park here next week. If you want to hang out, we're going to be hanging out. I'll be offering you guys universal cosmic wisdom in exchange for your money, and all of your money and your belongings. I will be giving you clothing to all look the same. So you guys, there's no differentiation between you. Except for me, I will have gold rings and aviator sunglasses and a bucket of fried chicken everywhere I go. But you're welcome to come. That's my luncheon. If you want to come to my luncheon, buddy.
That does sound pretty fun. It just reminds me of those like mega preachers like, God wants me to buy a private jet so I may spread my message to the people of all the states in 24 hours. It's like, dude, it's fucking horseshit. It's like that's so just like made up.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all culty too.
Yep.
The final technique used for physical isolation is a pretty fucked up one, in my opinion, which can also be seen as psychological or emotional isolation as well. And that is a relationship isolation. And what do I mean by that? Well, member of the cult will use their charisma and charm to either lull the victim into a friendship or even worse, a romantic relationship, and build this trust with them. And of course, the entire time that the victim thinks they've made a real connection with someone, the cult member is just taking advantage of their trust and slowly but surely planting little seeds about the cult into the person's head while pretending to be their lover.
That's so fucking evil. That's so evil. Like, yeah. You imagine like your girlfriend of like 3 years and then suddenly she's like puts an application in your face and it's like,
yeah.
Oh my God. And like, I don't know. That's always been terrifying to me, that like the lengths that some people will quite literally go. And maybe that's why I'm just such a paranoid person and why I have like difficulty trusting people I've never met before, because it's like, and that's not to say too, because that kind of gives people a little too much credit, and that not everybody out there has that will to be able to commit to something for 3 years just to get a fucking cult member or something. That takes a very special type of crazy. So that was something that I had to get over as a movie. Okay, not everyone out there is just trying to fucking after me wallets or anything like that, you know? It's just...
So you're concerned about your wallet, man.
Hey, man.
Tight, you know? I understand. I get it.
I work hard for my money. And it's all going to be gone very soon with... because I'm getting... I have to get a car because mine doesn't work anymore. And see, this is why I do it. This is why. Because inevitably some shit's going to go down. And I don't want to have to, you know... make a cult to make my ends meet.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
It's creepy stuff, though.
It is pretty creepy, man. But that was it for the physical isolation. We got all that out of the way. But it is all that physical isolation is wrapped up in one goal. And that goal is to make it so the victim does not have any outside influence or arguments about the cult when telling others about it. The cult's goal is to have you converted to their cause before you even have a chance to confide in someone about the information they've given.
Oof. So that also means too, if there's like some very attractive woman at the bar or man or whoever you're interested in,
Like an
because
elephant, like an
yeah,
attack helicopter, or whatever people identify as. Yes.
Foxkin, all that, dude. It could be even at a furry convention. Actually,
Oh,
that might be a big community they might have not even tapped into yet. For as far as we know, they send in one of their operatives in full fursuit, and they're trying to, go in there and like rowdy it, like get them into a big old yiffin thing. And if you listen to Nick's furry episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And
but here's the thing about the furries.
like
Not
I
even folks want furries, okay? They wouldn't be caught dead at a furry convention. Anybody who's not a furry caught there at a furry convention, nobody would do
but if you think about it though, too, some very attractive whatever you're into comes up to you and says like, "Hey, I'll have sex with you if you join my cult." And they won't call it that. They'll be like, "Oh, I'll have sex with you if you go to this um retreat on the
that.
weekend." Oh yeah, that's such an easy trade. And then before you know it, your life's spiraling down. You're wearing the same clothes as everybody else, chanting some bullshit and helping the cult leader pay for his new Ferrari.
Yeah. So when random strangers in a bar ask you to have sex with you, just say yes, but don't go to the retreat. Trick them, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, totally. I'll go to the retreat. You have sex, and you're like, oh, sorry, I forgot I'm busy that weekend, and then just bounce. You know what I mean? That way you're safe.
I know you're just doing a bit, but that's actually trying to pick up people at the bar. That is example of mind control and mental manipulation because I mean, unless they are right out the gate already attracted to you or something like that, like trying to work your magic or trying to quote unquote put the moves on and, you get them like, laughing, you get them enjoying your company. And then that's technically mind control.
Absolutely, and it works 60% of the time, every time.
Jeez, wow, you've really been loving that quote lately, huh?
I love that movie.
Oh, it was Dazed and Confused.
No, that was Anchorman, the first Anchorman. He was talking about
Oh,
he's talking about the what was that cologne called that he put on? Whatever, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
It works every 60% of the time, every time.
Oh yeah, but remember, as long as it's consensual, that's really. I mean, you might have just completely infiltrated their mental and to get what you wanted, but you know what? That's what's creepy about this whole thing is if they say yes, technically you're scot free.
Yeah. To sign the waiver. It's 2020.
Yeah.
You gotta have paperwork for that shit now.
Exactly. Remember, this episode is we're here to give you awareness of what is going on around you and what people are doing to try to get into your pants or your wallet
For your head.
or your head.
Now we move on to the more emotional and psychological part of isolation. It's very manipulative and very dangerous if done correctly and to the right individual, like we were just kind of talking about. One of these forms of isolation include the separation of family and friends. Oftentimes, as I'm sure many of you have heard about Scientology, the cult will tell you that your family and friends who are not members are essentially the enemy. They will tell you that contact outside of their group will lead to your downfall as a member of their organization. And by isolating you emotionally from anyone but the cult and its members, the victim is surely to fall deeper into the rabbit hole of shit that is just being tricked unto them.
But yeah, it's like best way I can explain it, like with the picture, would be like what they do is they slowly coerce you into prison. And now they got all these walls. But the thing is with all this shit going on, well, even if you escape, even if you break out of prison, you're in the middle of the desert with nothing else. And just as the same as they want you cut off from everybody, that means if you do decide you don't want to be a part of this and you cut ties with them, and if they don't kill you, you don't have anybody to fall back on. So chances are most people end up just going back.
Yep. I mean, think about it. If the only people you think you can trust are these cult members and not even your own family who are concerned about you and your well being, you will eat up anything the cult has to say. And the saddest part about this is that it's brainwashing at its finest, and you believe every word that they can say because unfortunately, it's effective.
Even the most introverted people need human contact. And it's very easy to say fuck people. I don't like them. They're the worst and stuff. And like I said, coronavirus is a great example of it. Of like suddenly when you now forcibly cannot see other humans and stuff like that, it things get weird. Things get really weird. Or if you've ever had a time where, like, I know for me, there was like a couple of years where I was just in no contact with like anybody. And when suddenly the time came for me to start being in contact with people again, and like I started working like a job and I started like, going back to school and stuff. God damn, was that a learning curve. And I was very sociable in high school too. So it was like, it was socializing is a practice thing. It is a thing you need to have. You got to put your time in, and you can forget how to do it. And I don't mean to say that to be, to be like scare tactics, but it's actually another thing of there's hope, because the more it's my theory about parties and stuff for people trying to socialize is they think that the best way to re-socialize is go to a party, be the hit of a party, make everyone like them, go home and feel great. The most fucking toxic and terrible way to deal with that, because if you're not socialized, being the hit of the party is probably not going to happen. And if you go in with that high expectation, you're just going to be disappointed, and you're just going there is enough. And then maybe the next time go there and talk to somebody you never talked to before. Or you know what? Maybe not even that. Go there and just try to have some fun at all. And anyways, I'm getting off track. This is a topic
I know. Tie it back in though. You can do it. You're almost there.
Tied together.
Mind control and isolation. You're almost there.
Oh yeah. So re-socializing is not impossible. There's hope for you out there and stuff like that.
But Tasker's saying is that you can learn again. If you get out of a cult, you can come out and learn to be social again. That's what he's saying is re-socialization is possible.
Yes.
So if you do get trapped in these cults and you're like, you know what? The fact that I have to give $200,000 a year sounds a little weird. I don't even make $200,000. I'm going to dip after a couple of years, then you're good. And you can just hang out, learn to be human again, honestly, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's very much possible. Thank you for being my translator, because I definitely freaked out.
Oh, it's okay. I have you on subtitles, so I got it.
The like the auto ones that they have on like YouTube, so it just says
closed caption.
Yeah, where I say something like, I think crab meat is pretty tasty, and then like the translation says, I have crabs and 3 STDs.
Yeah. Another form of mental, or in some cases emotional, isolation is the control of media. And this is just what it sounds like. The oppressor will control everything you see, and I mean everything. This includes news, television shows, movies, music, podcasts, newspapers, magazines, literally anything in the world that could possibly go against what the cult is attempting to preach as a means of brainwashing.
This is one of the interesting things about our generation right now, is that we are consistently and constantly bombarded with exactly this, an assault on our mental psyche to convince us. We have things convincing us with pretty pictures and advertisers and people and all that to at every moment of every day. I mean, it's whether you know it or not, it's just, we filter it a little bit better, but like they say that's what's really shaped the modern mentality is the fact that we're dealing with and learning how to sift all this constant flow of information, because we are also a globalized society now. We as humans were meant to be in our little like cave clusters and stuff, but now we're connected to every single type of person on the planet. And it's no wonder people have a very strange attitude nowadays.
Exactly. And control the media is not only big in cults, like the example we've been using this whole time, but in certain oppressive world governments, including, but not limited to, North Korea, China, Cuba, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and many, many more countries. One could even create an axiom stating that the American government controls its media, but we wouldn't be bleeding heart patriots if we said that. Now, would we, Tasker?
I think the government controls a facet of it, but I think most media is just fucking corporate greed and capitalism. I do think that the government does monitor us, and I do think they are controlling shit to a degree, but I do think it's more the rich elite controlling us more than anything.
But the rich elite definitely have their ties with the government is the problem. It's all coming from the same place. Here's how I think it works. The government and the elite, we'll call them, right? Mm-hmm. Epstein's buddies, they're all friends, right? They're all holding hands. They're going to the beach, they're kicking up sand, making sandcastles and stuff. Meanwhile, the elite, these people running these major networks, are in charge of the news that comes to the mass public. The mass public is seeing stuff that the elite wants them to see and the government wants them to see because they're all in cahoots.
This is true. I
You know what
mean,
I mean?
well, yeah, and this might get me killed, but like, do you remember the Panama Papers? Because the Panama Papers was proven documents that basically the wealthy elite all around the world are 100% in cahoots with each other of how to just basically just hoard all their money and illegally keep all their shit in like different banks all across the planet, and how to circumvent like all the laws of all the countries that they're in. Like, it's true. It's proven. And guess what? It all got squashed down, and the reporter who uncovered it got killed.
Yeah, exactly. It's mind-boggling to me how people think that the news that they're getting, I don't care if you're getting it from Fox, I don't care if you're getting it from MSNBC, the news that you're getting in America is skewed and it's only showing you what they want you to see.
Or on the other hand, what you want to see. And they inflate that thing that it's like telling you what you want to hear. But then they keep inflating it to keep on like stoking that fire, keep you interested. And that's where, when telling somebody what they want to hear, that's when facts begin to be skewed, because truest of facts don't care about what you feel. But when you're trying to make numbers and you're trying to sell stuff and you're trying to get your viewership up, you tell people what they want to hear at the behest of the truth. And guess what? Now we have a bunch of people who think that drinking bleach can cure coronavirus, and stuff like that.
True. And also, when it comes to the media, the things that they tell you are also are also things that they use to distract you from what's happening elsewhere. It's completely manipulative. So, for instance, I'm sure you know, because I'm pretty sure we talked about it, but did you all out there know that Hillary went back on trial, but the only thing that they were covering was Black Lives Matter? Nope. Bet you didn't know about that. So,
I
you
did
didn't
not
know?
know that.
Oh,
I actually did not know
there you
that.
go. I mean, okay, we got to drop this because we're gonna get way off topic. I'm gonna get really frustrated and go down this conspiracy. I'm not even gonna call it a conspiracy rabbit hole. It's the truth. It's 100%. I'm not saying that Black Lives Matter does not deserve the attention that it got and is getting. I believe it does, but there's other things going on in the world that is not being covered by major media outlets and needs to be, but it's obviously being controlled from higher up. So I'm just throwing it out there. And I also don't think it's a coincidence that the Clintons were best buds with Epstein and Ghislaine. So I'm throwing, that's just me.
Yeah, I actually think you make a good point there, because Black Lives Matter is a good movement, but it is also a great excuse to fill up all the newspapers while they do shady shit. It's in a similar way that whenever Trump does some ignorant bullshit, is also coinciding with the fact that there's this legislation that makes it so hospitals can turn away gay people. Like, it's it's no coincidence. Like, it's very schemed. Like, it's very part of it. And you can already see the board meeting of all like the angry rich bald people. I'm bald myself, so I can say that. And just sitting there being like, fuck, this Black Lives Matter thing is crazy. He's like, yeah, but also realize that's all that everybody's looking at right now because it's so important. So what better time to put Clinton back on trial? What better time to do this and that? So, because the rich are also opportunists. These are people that you don't become mega rich by giving your workers fair pay and compensation for what they do. You get mega rich by slave labor and or sweatshops and or standing on the back. So these people are, it's not too far off to think that these people would do shit like this. Like, it's very like, I think it's happening. I think it just happened. Like, holy fuck, I had no idea Hillary was back on trial.
Yep, and it works, unfortunately. So keep that in mind, everybody. Never trust the media. That's it. Just never trust the media.
Yeah. Well, and also too, it's like you said, it works because we didn't notice it. It's just like how when you are a director and you're making a movie, you know you did a good job with the music and the sound effects when people in a weird way don't notice them. If you don't notice it, that means they did a really good job. That means you're immersed in their film. Just as the same as you know that the government isn't doing a good job when they get praise and cheers. The government does a good job when they pass something that would be super like horrible in public opinion, but manage to get it through without anybody noticing.
Exactly.
God, fucking politics. God, I hate
No,
it.
let's not get into it. This is not a politics podcast. We're not going to get too much deeper into it, but just know that there is something going on with the media.
Yeah, and honestly, this was bound to happen with the brainwashing episode. We were gonna get a little roast in some governments.
We had to. Well, of course we had to, because we we had to, and we did it. And the last type of mental isolation we will be covering today is what is called black and white thinking. And it's pretty obvious, but basically this is the last step for cults when it comes to trapping the victim hook, line, and sinker. Essentially what happens is once you are isolated from your family, your friends, the media, and anyone who might rain on the cult's parade, they will then isolate you from society in general. This is the classic, you're either with me or you're against me mentality. And at this point, if you fall for it, then you will now just be another cog in their machine, tricking other vulnerable or unsuspecting people into joining the cult themselves.
That's the biggest thing of why, because people say, like, oh, if you find out you're in a cult, why not just leave? Because you're trapped, because they got you by balls. Because if you leave, they're either going to kill you or they're going to like gang stalk you or they're going to ruin your life even more. And basically saying, if you leave, we're going to make it so you can't reintegrate.
And that's for all the people who think it's bullshit. That's for all the people who don't believe it and they want to leave. A majority of these people believe it wholeheartedly and are like, why would I leave? This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. That's at that, and that at its core is the brainwashing happening behind the scenes at these different cults and organizations.
Well, and weirdly enough, that's how most of them operate. Is people think of cult as this like really oppressive and angry and scary and cracking the whip. It's like, no, they want you to be complacent. They want you to be happy. They want to, like they advertise to you, meet your needs, but you're meeting theirs far more and convincing you that, you know, that you're happy and that you have what you want. That's actually the best way to retain your cult population and stuff like that. Is they want you to be happily give your money because you're like, why wouldn't I? Dude, they're great. They're super nice to me. I have a bunch of great friends here. We all have a great time. Like, even though they're fucking sucking up all your resources and getting free labor and they're making a shit ton of money off of you, but it's like that's where that tricky mental thing comes in of like, well, what is it that you as a person want? And what is it that like is cutting off everyone in your life worth this and stuff like that? And I mean, the big answer most people will say is no, because I don't know. Everybody's different, but I would say it's good to not do a cult thing.
Yeah, don't do it, guys.
Yeah,
If you start it, then do it. Then because you're making the money, you're making the big bucks, you're getting your dick sucked.
Yep. Well, see, and like we mentioned before, that's what's so scary about it is you can't necessarily prove a cult super easily because everyone's on there of their own volition. So unless you can prove that they were being held there against their will, you're basically scot-free. They can't charge you on anything. And that's why cults are so terrifying, is because they do have that like amnesty. Is that the word? Oh, hold on, let me look that up.
Ready for Tasher's word of the day?
Amnesty, an official pardon for people who have been convicted. Okay, so that's people who have already. So okay, that's not the right word. But they basically they got like an immunity. Like they just because it looks and sounds like a cult does it in the court of law if they can't prove it, which most of the time cult leaders are cunning and they'll come up unless they really fucking suck at it. Like it's fairly easy to get away with it because it's just like you said, as long as there's the consent, you know, you can't do shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on my own right now. The cult of Kung Pao Chicken is almost there. I mean, sorry, the church, not the cult. I don't want to be that obvious about it.
Cult 101. Don't call your cult a cult.
Yes, that was a trick, and I it was a test, and you passed, Tasker.
Thank God. Yeah, Oh man, I'm really glad I feel like if in my like early 20s, they probably could have gotten me hard, but I want to say nowadays I think I can squeeze out.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
You are not immune from propaganda.
Unless, of course, you're the one making it.
Yeah, this is true. Actually, he's probably the only
I
one
will,
immune.
I will always take that position. Tasker will always tell you you're not immune, and I will always encourage you to be the one making it. Because if you can't beat him, join him. All right. Now let's move. Speaking of propaganda, Tasker, let's now move on to the next technique used to control the minds of the masses: propaganda.
The big one.
This is the big one. This is the most prevalent one. Now, propaganda is the use of information, especially biased information, used to skew the public image on a particular political matter, most notably wars. Propaganda has been used in major wars during our modern era, but there have been recordings of even earlier forms of propaganda. We want to dive into some now to show you just how effective this method of mass brainwashing is. And as a caveat, I want to put up top, not all propaganda is bad propaganda, but a majority of propaganda is detrimental to society.
Oh yeah, just like how not all lies destroy lives, but there is sometimes there's a reason why the yin yang principle is so important, is that there's good and bad in the world, but there's also some bad and good, and there's some good and bad.
Yes,
And
like the Jedi and the Sith.
exactly, which I wouldn't be surprised to add a lot of like roots and all that kind of stuff. But that's the thing is, sometimes there is like, I know the word necessary evil is the first path to becoming a supervillain, or as they say, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, which is so fucking true.
It's a good quote.
Yeah. Oh, I love it because it's true. Sometimes bad people actually were looking out for the best for their people and weren't just greedy assholes, but their overzealous passion leads them to doing things that they wouldn't normally do. And it's that whole of, I think that's why holding on to humanity is the most important thing, because at least if you're doing good or if you're doing bad, as long as you are retaining a sense of humanity through it all, you could probably get through without completely destroying everything and everyone you've ever loved and appreciated. But it's dicey. This is we're getting into some major gray area territory, and I fucking love it. This is my favorite kind of shit because, like we just discussed before, black and white thinking. That's what you do in a cult. When it's this is wrong and this is right, that's a cult. The real world is gray all across the board. Like any great movie, like the villains and the heroes both are kind of questionable in their methods. And when things get desperate, people do desperate things. And life itself is gray. Nobody's perfectly good and nobody's perfectly evil. And if you try to be a perfect version of each of them, it's not going to work. You're going to find maybe not even quickly at all. You will find though, shit will fall in on itself. Just embrace the void.
Embrace the void. Now let's begin by going back to about 515 AD, where we find a writing called and I believe it's pronounced the Behistun inscription, in which it talks about Darius the First's ascension to leadership over the whole of the Persian Empire. This document is widely accepted as one of the earliest forms of propaganda, and it was also in favor of the Persian Empire. Next, we have Alexander the Great. Also, he had his own form of propaganda, which was to put on his likeness on everything. Coins, which sounds familiar. I'm sure all of you by now have seen your own currency, unless you live somewhere. Never mind, I'm not going to bring it up. Monuments. His likeness was on coins, monuments, and statues. Basically saying how great he was because he was Alexander the Great.
Yep, that's right. That is propaganda. Like, put your visage on anything to change your public opinion of it, good or bad. That's propaganda.
Yep. Most notably, from times before the modern era, we have the Catholic Church. Here again, to stick its greedy, stinky fingers where they really don't need to be.
Wow.
Yes, I'm very passionate about this. The Catholic Church used a lot of propaganda to promote Christianity over Islam over Islam during the Crusades, Deus Vult.
This fault.
The the homeland okay, the Holy Land does belong to the Christians. I just want to put it out there. If you want to fight me about it, fight me about it.
That's Nick's opinion, not mine. I'm just not going to comment on this.
I'm kidding. I don't care either way. Let's burn it down.
Oh my god.
And not only that, but the church actually coined the term propaganda. This is because in 1622, Pope Gregory XV created the Congregatio de Propaganda Fide, which
Wait, hold
means
on. I think it's Congregatio de Propaganda Fide.
I think we literally just said the same thing with different inflections.
Exactly. It's
We'll let the people decide.
Yeah, well, you could vote and see which one you like best, and
Yeah.
we'll send you a dick pic or something.
Yeah, and give us a part in a movie, whoever wins.
Yes, please.
But this weird term means congregation for propagating the faith. And this congregation was, of course, used to promote their religion in non-Catholic regions. Now, the name of the congregation was often called propaganda in short, and this is where we get the word and its meaning today.
So is the Italians.
Those goddamn Italians, dude, with their spaghetti and their greasy hair and their
Merlot.
They're Merlot and they're always eating carbs, but somehow staying thin, and they're smoking and staying 100 years old, and they're dumb history sites.
New Lamborghini.
You know what? I probably should have looked it up. Do you think that is Italian, which I initially thought?
It looks like Italian. I could be wrong, but
I don't know. I'm not a linguist.
I'm pretty sure Latin died out like a lot sooner than the 1600s. So, and yeah, because the Vatican in Vatican City is in Italy, if I am not mistaken. Let me double check that.
Actually, the Vatican is its own sovereign nation within the confines of Italy.
Yeah. I hope you're happy with yourself, you fucking asshole. Okay.
Yeah, well, they had to make it a sovereign nation so they can hide all the boys there.
This is true. And I don't mean like the boys, like like getting the cold one. The boys. We mean like children.
Boys, like children, boys.
Yes. And it is Italian, by the way.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Let me. No, you know what? No, we don't even need to confirm it. We'll just move on.
But that's where we get the term propaganda from. It is from the Catholic Church, which is
so funny.
It's weird, right? It's a weird connection.
That's really funny. Well, yeah, dude, like modern day Catholic Church is obviously not the same Catholic Church it used to be. But if we're taking a little time trip back to when, because Christians and Catholics and stuff, I think it was more Christians because Christians came first, right? Christianity.
I got Christianity, and then the Catholic Church is technically just an organization of Christians.
Yeah,
they're doing it their way. So Christianity did come first.
Okay, so because Christians originally were hard persecuted, were like getting killed left and right because after I'm pretty damn sure Jesus existed, and that's why Christianity existed. So there's so much fucking work about him and stuff. So ever since this guy got crucified, everyone was like, oh, fuck. Like, dude, Christianity is the way to go. And the people in power were like, don't like that. So they just are like, well, what better way to get rid of him? And let's just start killing him. Until eventually, I mean, this is a long historical discussion, but eventually Christians came into power. And when Christians came into power, and by that, I mean, like, kings began to convert their countries into Christianity and stuff like that. Then they were kind of in a much like easier spot. But then the Pope found he had a huge position of power globally that he could basically imagine this time when kings were considered to be gods and having the power to control kings. So that's like basically what the Pope did. So that's like, what was that thing that they used to do? There were indulgences where you could pay them like fucking like a couple $1,000 equivalent their money, and technically that saves your soul from hell.
Yep.
Scam.
Yeah, big scam. Those were some early examples of propaganda throughout history, but let's move on to some more modern era stuff.
Right.
In the modern era, I mean in the last couple centuries. Now, First up, we have World War One. And at the very start, Germany wanted as many sympathizers as possible, so they actually created an organization called the Central Office for Foreign Services. It was an official government branch, essentially. And at this office, one of their main objectives was literally to create and send wartime propaganda to countries considered to be neutral in the war in order to persuade them to join Germany's side.
Oh my god.
That's all this office did.
Wow.
Yeah, it's you'll see Germany is weird with their propaganda. You'll see the main points that Germany would try to bring up with their propaganda clearly lies, like obviously, but making themselves look like the victim in all of this and that they were just fighting a war in defense of their homeland the entire time.
Wow, nice.
Britain and the US also had propaganda during the First World War, but compared to Germany's, it was pretty tame and for the most part, but
a big part of a big part of American and British propaganda was more to demonize the enemy more than anything, because the biggest trick when it comes to selling a war to your people is convincing them that the people that you're up against are inhuman and deserve to die. And that's actually a big reason why a lot of previous generations still harbor such very intense feelings about certain people and certain cultures. Like if you were, I don't know how many World War II vets are alive anymore, but like
right here.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we could have you on the show. That's a wonderful opportunity we have here.
There's fucking Japs coming out of the ocean, like.
I mean, it's accurate, but
that.
like,
I can say Jap.
You can. I mean, but you're not wrong though. Like normally, I would cut that.
That's what they call them. That's what they call. They literally will. Yeah, like I have a grandfather who was in World War II. I'm pretty sure he said Jap.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like that's how, and they will, because here's the thing is that if you were in this era where you were basically taught that Japanese people were like literally just like a bunch of like monster goblins out to like eat your family, like, and then you were there at Pearl Harbor and shit like that, like, dude, you're never going to get over that. Like, you're never going to see them as anything other than a people that need to be destroyed. And that's the fallout of propaganda with wars and stuff, is even though we ended up becoming allies with Japan afterwards and stuff like that, I think we have pretty good relations with Japan now in America.
Right now we do for sure. But I mean, during World War II, I mean, it was real bad.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know what? Like you're saying at the time, you're calling them monsters who were going to eat your family. Not only were they going to eat your family, but the worst part of it is they were going to do it with a side of rice as well.
Oh my god,
that's just insulting.
Oh yeah, and then think of that too, of also you've been hearing all this shit, and then you get deployed, and then you go out, and two of your best friends get like shelled in the face while you're out there, and then you see like maybe two Japanese soldiers like laughing about it or some shit. Like I don't know, it's
I kill him so hard. Oh, you come here with I have bayonet.
No. Like I said, you're lucky you're Japanese enough to be able to, and even then, it's like sketchy at best.
Yeah, it's still questionable, but I'm going to do it anyway because this is my art.
You can't take it from me because this is your platform. So you let freedom ring. But you could see the point though that we're trying to make is that whole like they get into your head and they dehumanize it because they want a stronger war effort, because they want you to go in and decimate them because they want to win. Because if we lose the war, well, we're going to have some much bigger problems. But so there is that argument of like, is it good or is it bad? Because, at the end of the day, the trade-off is that these people will harbor this hatred of these people probably for the rest of their lives, especially when death is brought so close to their face right in front of them.
Yes, and we will call them racist till they die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now it's like they're all growing up and old and shit. That's why they're so mad when everyone's like, "Grandpa, you can't be racist." He's like, "I fucking had to kill people to fucking save."
I saw one of those.
Hello, CEO TPK listener. This section had to be removed because Nick reached his limit on racist jokes and must be censored like the fucking Chinese.
That was
this part is so confused.
Yeah, we'll think about it. But and having.
Okay, but you know what? But also, getting back to the other objectives of the American and British propaganda, like we've been talking about, it's just highly romanticized the war efforts, and the main goal was enlistment, and especially in America, you had to sell war bonds, and that's what a large part of the propaganda was for.
Oh yeah, because this is World War II we're talking about, right?
World War I right now,
okay,
but they did the same thing in World War II.
Yep, war is expensive.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And weren't war bonds like that? Because that's where you buy a war bond, you get nothing out of it, but they say once the war is over, you can trade them in at a profit, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically like a certificate of like, I pay $100 for a war bond, so I have my $100 war bond that's worth fucking nothing. But then when we win the war, then it's now worth like 150 or something like that, and I just profited.
It's like an investment. They basically sold it that way, and unfortunately, I didn't do enough research into like how that played out. Like, I don't know how well it went, but I'm sure it went well. Like, I'm sure, I mean, because we won both times.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's like it's all very dependent. It's very dependent on whether or not you win or lose. And I mean, if you lose, well, then it doesn't really matter, because guess what? You just got invaded. So I think,
and then we're just all speaking Germany and shit. So
yeah, just like that.
We're all just speaking Germany. No, we're all speaking German. That's what I meant.
Oh, good job. Well, it's just like that show. I never really got super into it, but The Man in the High Castle, a theoretical alternate timeline where we lost the war and the Nazis took over the world.
I never watched it.
You might actually really like it. It's very intense, but it's very interesting, where basically the Axis divided the United States into the left side is owned by Japan and the right side is owned by Germany, with this like little autonomous zone in the beginning. I watched like it was cool. I love the concept, but like I only got like a couple episodes in.
Oh man, you know that reminds me of FDR American Badass. Have you seen that movie?
No.
Where Hitler and the Japanese guy and Mussolini. I don't even know who the fuck was running Japan. They were all werewolves, and FDR, he had polio, right? So his legs didn't work and stuff, and he had wiggly legs, but he was able to like kill all the werewolf Hitlers and stuff. Anyway, that's a dumb movie.
Yeah. By the way, Hideki, is it? Does in Japanese, do they pronounce the J as an H, or is that just my Mexican coming through?
Your Mexican side coming through.
Okay. Hideki Tojo.
Okay, there you go. He was a werewolf, and FDR killed him.
Oh my God.
All right, that was a good movie review by Nick. If anybody wants to watch FDR American Badass,
Fantastic.
But now let's get into everyone's favorite drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. And of course, we're now going to be talking about World War II and Nazi Germany. I got
to point out. Yeah. I got to point out, I really enjoyed this episode. It's very historical, and I love that we're getting really into the nitty gritty of all that. I just got to say, I'm having a good time.
Yes, Tasker is a big history buff. Now, can he please the Sieg Heil? You know what I mean?
It's not going to happen. I'm not that. What was that at like the Republican National Convention in like 2016? Yeah. When that one blonde girl or something she meant to like, no. I think it was, she threw a fat Sieg Heil at the end of her speech and tried to play it off like a wave and shit. It's like, dude, nope. That looked like muscle memory to me.
Yeah, and she looked like the Aryan race, so you know.
Oh, she looked like she's probably coordinated some Hitler Youth camping trips.
Events. So after World War I, many military officials in the West believed that British propaganda during the war was very helpful, almost caused Germany's defeat. They were very into it. But believe it or not, wacky old Adolf Hitler thought the same thing. So naturally, he utilized previous British propaganda techniques on their own propaganda when trying to dominate Europe. And of course, on March 13th, 1933, the Third Reich actually created something known as the Ministry of Propaganda. Literally just a ministry to create propaganda. And he made Joseph Goebbels the head of that. And biggest goal of this ministry was to have the citizens of Nazi-occupied areas believe that there were external energies.
Okay. What was your little persona about that, like Karen or whatever?
Oh, I forgot what
Persephone.
Persephone. Yeah, so there's external energies, and there's internal energies.
But I'm just imagining Persephone with a fat like armband on her.
Golden eagles and um, but
Jeez.
so the goal was to basically promote the idea that there were external energies, fuck,
2 for 2.
external enemies to the country of Germany. Basically, these countries were just the ones that were a part of the Treaty of Versailles from the end of World War One. He claimed them to be enemies of Germany, and there were internal enemies, and of course, these are the ones that we all know about: the Jews, the Romani, gays, the Bolsheviks, and what Hitler considered to be degenerate art, which I assume is just furry stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to comment on that. What I will comment on is that so we did say previous in this episode, if you have a cult, don't call it a cult. So you might be wondering, why the fuck did Hitler straight up call it the Ministry of Propaganda? Like, that's basically saying, hey, I am fooling you right in your face. Well, that's because if you know much about the Third Reich, they it didn't really matter, because if you didn't listen to what they said, they just killed you anyways. So they could do that shit because they were very much forcibly making you do anything you want. And it was that sort of like, we're calling it propaganda because it is propaganda. So you either live happy and enjoy yourself, or we kill you.
Exactly. And just before the invasion of Poland in 1939, the Third Reich and the Ministry of Propaganda began spreading lies that Poland was acting aggressively toward Germany and her people, which would in turn give Germany the green light to invade with the people's support. And believe it or not, most of the surrounding areas believe that. Until, of course, we found out later that they just invaded poor Poland while everybody in Poland was just making sausages and stuff. This was, of course, a bold lie. Hitler even said to his generals about this specific propaganda, quote, I will provide a propagandistic casus belli. Its credibility doesn't matter. The victor will not be asked whether he told the truth, unquote. He just
fucking harrowing.
The balls on that guy, dude. He was like, who cares? We're going to win anyway. So they're not going to be like, hey, was that propaganda true? Nah, we're going to win. Doesn't matter.
So scary. Like, but it's really true. And like I say, when I emphasize the whole you are not immune to propaganda, I mean, as smart as you might be, when it comes to a leader talking to his people, mob mentality tends to take over. And when mob mentality is at the front, it's not easy, but it is very possible to sway that entire public opinion to do something atrocious. And all you got to do is just frame it the right way, use the right words, or just straight up lie to people. I mean, Trump does that shit all the time. He makes shit up and people rally behind him because they just think why would he lie to us? He's our leader. He told us we're allowed to be racist. So why the fuck wouldn't we listen to him? And by the time usually it's the next day, it's like, well, it was proven false. Well, they've already taken action and there's kind of no going back. It's just, that's of course a very micro version of what Hitler did, which was, like you said, just lie to the people. But by the time, it came out that it was like, who fucking cares? They already invaded Poland. They're already like doing it. There's no going back. They already got the approval. They already got the votes. They already got the signatures. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. Well, now that we've had our little history lesson on Nazi Germany and the like out of the way, let's move on to the last form of mind control and brainwashing for this episode. And it's going to be a brutal one: fear and dependency. Now, I'm not I don't give like trigger warnings because this isn't Tumblr. Okay, this is Close Encounters of the Podcast kind, in case you're lost. But right. I will say that later, I mean, very briefly, I'm not going to be getting into details and fapping to it or anything, but there will be some things brought up that might be concerning to certain people out there. Just know that we're all here together, and I don't know, go complain about it or something. So, did I do good? Was that good?
Yeah, I like that we very distinctly say we don't do trigger warnings, but we provide cautionary advice to our listeners.
Yeah. So don't worry about it. It's all good. It was in the past, right?
Oh my God.
Okay, this is more of a tactic used by kidnappers and abusive individuals throughout a relationship or, like I said, a kidnapping. There are a couple ways that this form of desensitization and mind control can occur.
See, and there's another word for this is negative reinforcement.
Yes, very negative reinforcement. Very, very negative.
Mhm.
Um, one way is through abusive language. And this is used to essentially numb the victim's mind and emotions over time by breaking down their self confidence and self esteem, making it easier for them to comply with the aggressor. Do it to Tasker on a daily basis so that he shows up here every Monday ready to record. And I mean, works. No? So,
Yeah, I mean, we've
have
been
anything to say about it, Tasker?
we've been releasing an episode once a week, so obviously something's working.
Yeah, and I've been keeping it at a steady level of verbal abuse too, so nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's what keeps me coming back is like every once in a while it's like it's kind of funny, there's a couple little clever bits in there, and it's that sort of through the tears you can get a little you can crack a smile every now and again. And that's like I say, I'm more of a positive reinforcement guy, but hey, whatever, like I say, as long as it works.
Shut up, dog.
It's fucking oh.
No.
This is the part of the joke where we clarify we are in fact just joking.
We are joking.
Oh man.
Ooh, man. Okay.
So
Another way. Yes. What?
I was gonna say, so now getting into the opposite of joking.
Yes. Now, okay. I will try to not joke as much as possible throughout, probably from here to the end of the content for the episode today.
And this is a fair warning to the listeners too. And I know it's been touched on before, but if you haven't figured it out, Nick copes with humor. So there might be some things that slip that may or may not get edited out. So
Yes.
we'll go into it the best we can. But you know what? We're all humans here. We all have our own ways of trying to make light of things. But this is just that little before we get into this and before we make some like horrible mistakes. This shit's hard on all of us, and it's a terrible thing that these things happen to people. And if you do find yourself a victim of abuse and stuff, please try to reach out to somebody, find a way to get the fuck out of there. Use your mind and even trap them. I've heard stories of people like pulling shit off like that. Like,
Yeah.
you can
Join
do
our
it.
Discord and talk to us about it, and we'll try and help you out.
Yep, we're here, and you know how paranoid we are. We're going through at least 5 proxies. So,
Yes.
but
But
yeah,
you know what? If you had the time to get on Discord, you'd probably have time to call the cops. But just either one. If you can get a
Yeah.
hold of one of us, we'll help you out. If you can, get out of there, get out of there. You know what I mean?
yep. But most importantly, your first step and your pathway to getting out of there is realizing that you have something to get away from in the first place. So, you're not immune to propaganda. They're probably pulling this shit on you, and sometimes positively and sometimes negatively. So just, use your best judgment. Really take a look at what it is that you want and need in your life and look at who might be taking that away from you. So just be careful out there. So that's my little PSA. Now, Nick, just go crazy.
All right. So, anyways, a preacher, a rabbi, and and a bourgeoisie walk into a bar, right? Just kidding. Okay. Another another way that they use this is through physical abuse. This can include things like torture, beating, rape, and negligent conditions. And by that, I mean, of course, like, being chained in a cage or no food,
Starve.
no water. Yeah, very bad conditions. The victim in this type of physical environment essentially has their will broken from pure exhaustion and pain, making it easier to comply again with the aggressor. It's all about the breaking point here.
Right. And it's interesting to note, like, obviously there's a huge difference when it comes to somebody with malicious intent versus say something like joining the military or joining like the Navy SEALs, where I just recently watched a documentary on it. So interesting because I could never do it. But that whole thing of like because they're trying to make you into a soldier. And not only that, especially in the case of the Navy SEALs, a very specialized soldier who can at a moment's notice like do what's right for his team and to put your nation and your partners first. But in order to do that, you can't have a civilian mindset. So they need to push you to this point of mental break of the person you were before dies so a new one can be born out of it. But that is a very controlled with intent, and people go, that's a volunteer program too. It's not something you're forced to do. It's a test of your commitment to it, because you can quit at any time. You're not being forced to do it. In the cases of what we're discussing, though, more often than not, these are things that you are forced to break against your own will. That is, wow, that is a whole breadth of horrific awfulness.
It's pretty bad. But once the victim has been broken down using these two methods, the aggressor can start implementing little nuggets of quote unquote kindness, obviously fake kindness, in
Right.
order to build some kind of faux relationship with this victim. And this shell of a relationship creates a dependency that the victim has toward the aggressor. And that is the important part. It shows to the victim that the aggressor is in control of their emotions, both the terrible and the nice emotions, in control of everything,
This is sort of kind of hand in hand with like Stockholm syndrome, right?
which we were going to get into. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is, and we have like a little bit of a tale here for you guys. This is actually more of a famous story that occurred in history in the 70s. I'm sure every single one of your parents knows exactly what this story is. And of course, I'm talking about the kidnapping of Patty Hearst. So we're going to get into this one, and this is a textbook example of fear and dependency leading to brainwashing. Patty is the granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. He's a famous American businessman and politician to a certain degree.
There's also a Hearst Castle. That's a tourist destination.
Exactly. And having that kind of grandfather, Patty was naturally a good target for anyone looking to kidnap for ransom or worse. Well, in 1974, she was in fact abducted by the Symbionese Liberation Army. And just as a little background, the SLA was an American radical left terrorist organization that operated from 1973 to 1975. They usually carried out crimes like bank robberies was their usual go-to, but they also did kill a couple people in their run. Now, throughout her captivity with the SLA, Patty was subjected to numerous heinous acts such as isolation. For instance, she was locked in a cabinet for most of it, like a small cabinet. Physical abuse, including sexual abuse, and verbal abuse, which included death threats on a daily basis.
I would like to venture to say, like, I'm decently claustrophobic. Like, it's not so much, it's that when you don't have enough space to move around, like if there's no way out, that's very quickly like will set me off. Like, that's pretty creepy. Like I can do elevators and shit. Like, it's not that bad, but like being in like a small cabinet like that's difficult. And it was days, and it was a long time too, right?
Months.
Oh fuck.
Months of this torture, yeah.
Shit.
So after months of this abuse and torture, Patty developed something similar to Stockholm syndrome and was seen again by the public not as Patty Hearst, the heiress to William's empire, but as a fully dedicated member of the SLA. Most notably, she participated in a bank robbery at a San Francisco bank with the SLA. And when arrested and tried, she had lost a significant amount of weight, dropped in her IQ by, if I remember correctly, it was like 17 points or something like that, and was quote unquote zombie-like, something like herself. And they used the abuse and brainwashing as a defense, but she was still convicted and sentenced to 35 years in prison. It was later reduced to 7 years, though, but this is a famous story about exactly what can happen if these kind of tactics get into the wrong hands, and they use this is a textbook example of fear and dependency brainwashing.
Yeah,
she literally joined. She literally was a full-on dedicated member doing bank robberies.
The whole shebang. Like, that's so crazy. Like, yeah, you could go from a victim to an accomplice, and yeah, and she got tried and she had to go to prison for it. Like, it is insane what people do to survive, and how, like you said, there's that breaking point of no return. And you can even say to yourself, I would never do that. Like, no, that's ridiculous. I believe in good, blah, 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 blah. You've never been locked in a cabinet for months at a time. You would be surprised at how much your opinion can change. And that's, I mean, going back to the definition of this entire thing, is the definition is pressuring somebody into adopting radically different beliefs by using systematic or often forcible means. It can happen to you. It can happen to any of us. When exposed to any sort of extreme, our survival instinct kicks in and we will do anything for that self-preservation. It's really insane. It's really crazy about, the just what mankind will do sometimes just for a couple extra bucks too. That's what's so fucked up about this whole deal.
Yeah. But everybody, that was part 1 for mind control and brainwashing. Again, please don't try this at home. Save it for professional like hypnotists and stuff like that.
I was just thinking too, we spent like a whole 5 minutes doing our listener caution, but that really wasn't even that bad.
No, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I left out details because I didn't want to get into details like that. One, because it's uncomfortable, and 2, it lines up a lot of jokes that don't need to be joked about. And I figured for the best of both parties, leave it out, leave it into the basics. But that's basically what happened. We are still, you know what? Actually, I'm almost done with the Count Chocula episode. I'm at about 50 pages right now for the outline, but I'm done. I'm almost done. So I'll be sending it to Tasker shortly.
Yeah, I got to put it through for review. It's very sensitive information, but it's just nice to have it compiled for once. It's not just a bunch of scattered shit that needs to be decrypted and all that stuff. It's a really annoying process and stuff like that. But I'll just say that a lot of the stuff we discussed in this episode, you might be hearing a little bit more of it.
Yes. Apparently, I don't want to give too much away because we're going to talk about it in the episode, but apparently, Count Chocula cereal has subliminal messaging throughout the box, with a little address, right? There's an address. You can just barely see it, but you know how when kids eat cereal, they read the box, they read the box, the back of it and stuff.
Right.
There's a little address that I found, basically by putting together the first letter and number of each sentence of each paragraph on the back of the box that leads directly to Epstein's estate in Florida.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty damning. So I think that the fact that I even said it on air right now is probably going to get me killed. I'm going to end up Ghislaine's going to end up in a week or so. But I had to let you guys know, don't let your kids eat Count Chocula. If you do, don't let them read the back because they will go straight there.
I even heard there was a thing, they kind of swept it under the rug, but supposedly there was a specific Count Chocula thing where it was how you can mail in and they send you a toy or something like that. There was a specific one that I think went to the wrong person. And I think a little kid sent it in and they ended up giving the kid received in the mail a sort of a it's like a hitman orders, and it was, but of course they squashed it down. I can't even explain how difficult it was to figure that story out because, of course the man himself did his best to squash all that shit down. So it's pretty bad. But like I said, I probably shouldn't have said that. But
we've really damned ourselves.
Yeah, let's just say that once this episode is released, that's also another reason why we're a little hesitant to even release the episode. We know we have to, but we also realize that could be the end of our podcast career as we know it.
Exactly.
So we're doing this for you guys. Don't worry. Count Chocula episode 100% in the works. But until then, and while we're still available and being able to chat with all of you wonderful people, if you can rate and review us on iTunes, hit us with that 5-star rating so we can start climbing up and showing up on the page so we could have a little bit more of a community. Spotify, please send us a follow or click that follow button. Instagram, we are at CEOTPK, Twitter at CEOTPK1, Facebook, you'll just find us Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. You can email us at ceotpk1@gmail.com. Like we talked about before, if you got anything you got to talk about, or if you need help getting out of a cult and you just need some resident weirdos to talk you through it, discord.gg/lowercase b 6 capital T capital fuck discord.gg/lowercase b 6 capital C capital T 5 capital M capital X. You feel like we need some money, or you just got a couple extra bucks that you feel that you want to send our way, we have coffeeko.fi.com/CEOTPK. In a way, this little bit that we do at the end of every episode is a bit of a subliminal advertising brainwashing.
It is, and you're getting very sleepy, and also the truth is out there.
Oh, I am penetrating the inner recesses of your mind to tell you it's fucking not.
Okay, we gotta cut that. Let me redo that one.
Yeah, good call.
It just slipped out.
Yeah.